You don't understand what you've done, boy. The old man's voice cracked like dried leather. Ethan's hands wouldn't stop shaking as he stared at the ring, tarnished silver skull engraved deep letters he could barely read in the dim light. Hell's Angels. The bike parts scattered around him suddenly felt like evidence at a crime scene. His mother's medication bottles sat on the workbench, a reminder of why he'd started this insane project. But now, standing in the junkyard at midnight with a stranger who'd appeared from nowhere, Ethan realized he hadn't just found a motorcycle. He'd opened a grave. Before we dive into Ethan's story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what city you are watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's go back to where it all began. Ethan Cole discovered the motorcycle on a Tuesday, which was fitting because Tuesdays were when the medical bills arrived. He was 15 years old and had the hands of someone twice that age, calloused, scarred, permanently stained with grease that no soap could reach. The Nevada sun had turned his blonde hair almost white, and his mother said he looked like his father, which was the worst compliment she could give because his father had left them with nothing but debt and a junkyard full of broken dreams. "Ethan, did you check the mail?" His mother's voice drifted from the trailer, weak and raspy. The cancer had stolen her strength first, then her voice, and soon it would take everything else unless Ethan could find a way to pay for treatment that cost more than most people made in a year. "Not yet, Mom," he called back, lying. He'd already seen the red envelope from the hospital. Past due. Final notice. Words that meant his mother was running out of time. He grabbed a crowbar and attacked the pile of scrap metal in the far corner of the yard, the section his father used to call the graveyard within the graveyard. Nobody had touched it in 3 years. Rusted cars stacked like a metal mountain, their guts spilled across the desert floor. The crowbar hit something solid, not the hollow clang of empty metal, but something dense, heavy. Ethan cleared away the debris, a car door, a washing machine, pieces of a fence, and there it was. A motorcycle frame twisted and burned almost beyond recognition. Most people would have seen garbage. Ethan saw possibility. He pulled harder muscles, burning sweat soaking through his torn t-shirt. The bike resisted like it was trying to stay buried. When it finally broke free, Ethan fell backward, the frame crashing beside him. "Jesus," he whispered. It was destroyed. The fuel tank had a hole the size of his fist. The engine looked like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it. Both wheels were missing. The handlebars were bent at impossible angles. But underneath all that damage, Ethan could see the bones of something magnificent. A Harley Davidson, old school, maybe from the 70s or 80s. The kind of bike that if restored could sell for enough money his heart stopped, to pay for his mother's treatment. "Ethan." His mother appeared at the trailer door, wrapped in a blanket despite the heat. "What are you doing out there?" "Nothing." He positioned himself to block her view, just clearing some space. She studied him with eyes that had learned to see through his lies. "You're planning something." "I'm always planning something, Mom. Go rest." She lingered a moment longer, then retreated inside. Ethan waited until the door closed before turning back to the bike. He had no money for parts, no formal training, no mentor. Just 9 years of watching his father fix things before he disappeared in hundreds of hours teaching himself through salvaged manuals in pure desperation. But he had time, and he had nothing to lose. That night after his mother fell asleep, Ethan dragged the frame into the workshop, a lean-to shelter with a dirt floor and walls made from sheet metal. He set up the work light, a single bulb that barely cut through the darkness. The bike looked even worse under direct light. Ethan grabbed his notebook, a water-damaged spiral pad where he kept track of everything in the junkyard. He started listing what he'd need: new wheels, a complete engine rebuild, electrical system, fuel tank repair, seat, handlebars, brakes, cables. The list filled 3 pages. He did the math. Even scrounging parts from the junkyard, even doing all the labor himself, he'd need at least 9 months. 9 months his mother might not have. But 9 months was better than never. "Okay," he said to the broken machine. "Let's make a deal. I bring you back to life, you save hers." The bike sat silent, challenging him to prove himself. Ethan picked up his wrench and got to work. The first week was demolition, stripping away everything that couldn't be saved. Every bolt he removed revealed new damage. The frame had stress fractures. The engine block had cracks. The wiring had melted into a tangled mess. On day 4, he found blood. Old dried crusted into the grooves of the metal. Not much, but enough to make his hands freeze. Someone had crashed this bike, hard. Ethan scraped the blood away and kept working. He couldn't afford to think about the stories buried in the metal. He had his own story to write. By week 2, he'd stripped the bike down to the bare frame. It sat on his workbench like a skeleton, and Ethan studied it the way doctors study x-rays, looking for what could be saved and what needed to be rebuilt from scratch. "You're obsessed with that thing," his mother said one morning, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan looked up from the engine parts he was cleaning. His mother stood in the doorway, thinner than she'd been yesterday, her skin the color of old paper. "It's a project," he said. "It's an escape. Maybe I need one." She moved closer, each step requiring visible effort. "Your father used to do the same thing. Bury himself in work so he didn't have to face reality. Dad buried himself in work and then buried himself in another woman's bed halfway across the country." Ethan said, the bitterness automatic. "I'm trying to save your life." His mother's hand touched his shoulder. "By selling a motorcycle. By selling a restored vintage Harley for enough money to pay your medical bills." "Yeah." "Ethan, don't." He pulled away, turning back to the engine. "Don't tell me it's impossible. Don't tell me to give up. Don't tell me we should just accept this." Silence filled the workshop. "I wasn't going to say any of that," his mother finally said. "I was going to say thank you." She left before Ethan could respond, and he was grateful because he couldn't handle her gratitude on top of everything else. Month 3 brought the first major breakthrough. Ethan had been searching the junkyard for a replacement engine when he found a donor bike, a wrecked Sportster buried under a collapsed awning. The engine was intact. With modifications, he could make it work. He spent 2 weeks carefully extracting it, cleaning every component, cataloging every part. The work was meditative. When he was elbow deep in machinery, he didn't think about medical bills or his absent father or the way his mother's cough was getting worse. He just thought about the next bolt, the next connection, the next problem to solve. "You're good at this," a voice said. Ethan spun around, wrench raised like a weapon. An old man stood at the workshop entrance, maybe 70, with white hair pulled back in a ponytail and tattoos covering both arms. He wore jeans and a leather vest, and he looked at the bike the way people look at ghosts. "This is private property," Ethan said. "I know." The man's eyes never left the motorcycle frame. "Used to come here sometimes. Your father and I had an arrangement. My father's gone." "I know that too." The man finally looked at Ethan. "Name's Jim. I heard someone was working on a bike out here. Didn't believe it until I saw for myself." Ethan lowered the wrench slightly. "You want something? Want to know where you found that frame?" "In the junkyard. It's all junk here." "Not all of it." Jim moved closer, and Ethan noticed he walked with a limp. "Some things end up in places like this because they're supposed to stay buried. It's just a motorcycle." "Is it?" Jim's hand reached out, fingers trembling slightly, and touched the frame where Ethan had cleaned away years of rust and damage. "You know what you're working on? A Harley, probably late 70s. Electroglide, I think, based on the frame geometry." Jim smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "Smart kid. You're right about the model, wrong about everything else." Ethan's grip tightened on the wrench. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that bike has a history, and histories have a way of coming back." "Look, old man, I don't have time for cryptic warnings. I've got work to do." Jim studied him for a long moment. "How old are you?" 15. "And you're rebuilding a bike by yourself in a junkyard with no help." "I don't need help." "Everyone needs help, kid. Question is whether you're smart enough to accept it when it's offered." Ethan wanted to throw him out, but something in Jim's eyes stopped him. Not pity. Ethan had learned to hate pity. Something else. Recognition, maybe. Like Jim saw himself in the angry blonde kid with greasy hands and impossible dreams. "What kind of help?" Ethan asked. "The kind that keeps you from making mistakes that get people hurt." Jim pulled out a card and set it on the workbench. "You run into trouble with that build you call me. Don't matter what time." "Why would you help me?" Jim's expression darkened. "Because I know what that bike means, and I know what happens to people who mess with things they don't understand." He left before Ethan could ask what he meant. The card said Jim Walker, motorcycle specialist, with a phone number written in faded ink. Ethan threw it in the trash and went back to work. Month 5 changed everything. The engine was rebuilt. The frame was reinforced. Ethan had scavenged wheels from 3 different bikes to create 2 that actually worked. The fuel tank was patched, sanded, and ready for paint. The electrical system was completely rewired. He was making real progress. Against all odds, the impossible was becoming possible. Then he found the ring. It was hidden inside the fuel tank, wedged into a spot where it could only be discovered during a complete rebuild. Ethan felt it while cleaning the interior, a hard lump that didn't belong. He used needle-nose pliers to extract it. Tarnished silver, heavy, a skull engraved on the face with wings spread behind it, and around the band letters stamped deep into the metal, Hell's Angels MC. Ethan's blood went cold. He'd heard stories. Everyone had. The Hells Angels weren't just a motorcycle club. They were a brotherhood, a nation, an organization that lived by its own rules and enforced them without mercy. And this bike belonged to them, or had belonged to someone in the club. Ethan's hand shook as he turned the ring over, looking for more markings. On the inside of the band, he found initials JW. His mind immediately went to Jim. Jim Walker. JW, no, couldn't be. Lots of people had those initials. But the timing was too perfect. Jim appearing right after Ethan found the bike, asking where it came from, warning him about histories coming back. Ethan grabbed his phone, a cracked piece of jank that barely worked, and did something he'd been avoiding. He searched online, Hells Angels Motorcycle Nevada Crash. The results loaded slowly, but when they appeared, Ethan's stomach dropped. Article after article about a crash 5 years ago. A Hells Angels member named Jackson Wade had gone off a cliff during a run through the Nevada desert. His bike was never recovered. The club had held a memorial service. The case was closed. Ethan clicked on an image gallery. Jackson Wade smiled from a photograph standing next to a motorcycle that looked exactly like the frame sitting on Ethan's workbench. He wore a leather vest covered in patches, and on his hand, clearly visible in the high-resolution photo, was the same ring Ethan now held. "Oh, God," Ethan whispered. He'd been rebuilding a dead man's motorcycle. Not just any dead man, a Hells Angels member. His phone rang, the sound sharp in the silent workshop. Unknown number. Ethan answered without thinking. "Hello. You found it, didn't you?" Jim's voice, not a question. "How did you?" "Because I know that bike. Been looking for it for 5 years. And I know if you're as thorough as you seem, you've done a complete teardown by now." Ethan looked at the ring in his palm. "The initials aren't yours." "No, they're my nephew's. Jackson was my sister's boy. Good kid. Stupid choices." He crashed. He ran from responsibilities he wasn't ready to handle. The crash was just the ending. Jim's voice carried weight that had nothing to do with age. "You need to stop working on that bike." "I can't." "Kid, you don't understand what you're dealing with." "I need the money," Ethan's voice cracked. "My mother is dying, and this bike is the only thing I have that's worth anything. I've put 5 months into this. I'm not stopping now." Silence on the line. Then, "How much time does she have?" "I don't know. Months, maybe, if I can pay for the treatment." More silence. "Keep the ring hidden," Jim finally said. "Don't tell anyone you found it. Don't post pictures of the bike online. Don't draw attention." "Why?" "Because Jackson's brothers, his real brothers in the club, they never accepted that he was gone. Some of them think he was running from something. Others think he was killed. And all of them would want to know if his bike turned up after 5 years. What would they do? Depends on who finds out and what mood they're in. Best case, they take the bike and you get nothing. Worst case," Jim paused. "You don't want to know worst case." Ethan's throat felt tight. "I just wanted to save my mom." "I know, kid, but you picked the wrong bike to be a hero with." The call ended. Ethan sat in the workshop, ring in one hand, phone in the other, and felt the weight of a choice he didn't know how to make. Stop working on the bike, stay safe, watch his mother die. Or finish what he started, risk everything, and hope he could outrun the consequences. He looked at the motorcycle frame, no longer just metal and potential, but a gravestone he'd been polishing for months. Then he thought about his mother's face that morning, how thin she'd become, how her smile had started to look like an apology. Ethan put the ring in his pocket and picked up his wrench. "Forgive me," he whispered to the ghost whose bike he was stealing, and he went back to work. The ring burned a hole in Ethan's pocket for 3 days before he made his second mistake. He couldn't stop touching it. During meals with his mother while sorting scrap metal in bed at night, when sleep wouldn't come, his fingers found the skull and traced its outline like a prayer or a curse. The weight of it reminded him constantly that he was building his mother's salvation on top of someone else's grave. "You're distracted," his mother said over breakfast on the fourth day. She pushed scrambled eggs around her plate, eating maybe one bite for every 5 Ethan took. "Something happened with the bike." "No, it's fine. Good progress, actually." She set down her fork, the sound loud in their tiny kitchen. "Ethan, I'm dying, not blind. What aren't you telling me?" "Nothing." The lie tasted like metal. "I'm just tired." His mother's hand reached across the table, fingers trembling from medication or weakness or both. "If this is too much—" "It's not." He pulled his hand away before she could touch him, immediately regretting it when he saw her flinch. "Sorry, I just need to get back to work." He left his eggs half-eaten and escaped to the workshop, where at least the bike didn't ask questions he couldn't answer. Month 6 arrived with new problems. The electrical system kept shorting out no matter how many times Ethan rewired it. The carburetor he'd rebuilt flooded constantly. The front brake assembly didn't fit right, and he'd already spent 2 weeks trying to make it work. But the worst problem was simpler and more devastating. He was running out of parts. The junkyard had given up everything it had. Ethan had scavenged every compatible piece, stripped every donor bike, exhausted every option his father had left behind. What remained required actual money, new gaskets, fresh cables, brake pads, oil paint, money he didn't have. Ethan sat on the workshop floor back against the wall and did math that wouldn't balance. His mother's next treatment was due in 3 weeks. The bike needed at least 6 more weeks of work plus another $200 in parts. Even if he finished it, even if he found a buyer, the timeline didn't work. He was going to fail. The thought hit him like a physical blow, stealing his breath. 9 months of work, bleeding hands, sleepless nights, all of it for nothing because he couldn't afford $30 worth of brake pads. "Damn it!" Ethan threw his wrench across the workshop. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, the sound echoing in the silence. His phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Ethan almost didn't answer, but Jim had a way of knowing when things were falling apart. "What?" Ethan said, not bothering with hello. "Bad day." Jim's voice carried something that might have been sympathy. "Bad month, bad year, bad life." "That good, huh? You still working on the bike?" "What's left of it?" Ethan kicked at a pile of rejected parts. "I'm stuck. Need parts I can't afford, and even if I could, the timeline's wrong. I'm not going to make it." Silence on the line then. "What if you had help?" "I told you, not my help, not directly." Jim cleared his throat. "There's a guy, runs a shop in Vegas, owes me a favor. I could call him, see if he'd donate some parts to a kid rebuilding a classic Harley." Ethan's heart jumped. "Seriously? On one condition, you never mention where the bike came from. You never mention Jackson. You never mention me. As far as anyone knows, you found a frame and built it from scratch. That's basically the truth. The truth is a weapon, kid. Be careful how you use it." Jim paused. "I'll make the call. Go to Big Eddie's cycle shop on Friday. Tell him Jim sent you. He'll have a box ready." "Why are you helping me?" "Because Jackson was an idiot, but he was family. And because you remind me of him, too stubborn to know when you're in over your head." The line went dead. Ethan stared at his phone, then at the bike, then back at his phone. Help was coming. From a dead man's uncle for a dead man's motorcycle to save a dying woman. The irony felt heavy enough to crush him. Friday came wrapped in heat that made the air shimmer. Ethan borrowed his mother's car, a dying Toyota that protested every mile, and drove the 2 hours to Vegas on fumes and hope. Big Eddie's cycle shop sat between a pawn shop and a tattoo parlor, the kind of place that looked like it had stories buried in every corner. Ethan pushed through the door and a bell chimed. "Help you." The man behind the counter was not big. He was enormous. 6'5", maybe 300 pounds, with a beard that reached his chest and arms covered in ink. "Jim sent me," Ethan said, his voice smaller than he wanted. Eddie's expression shifted. "The kid with the project." "Yeah." "How old are you?" 15. "Jesus," Eddie shook his head. "Jim said you were young, but damn, you're doing a full rebuild at 15. "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir. Makes me feel old." Eddie disappeared into the back room and returned with a cardboard box that looked heavy. "This is everything Jim said you'd need. Gaskets, cables, brake pads, chain oil, even some paint. Consider it a donation." Ethan's hands shook as he took the box. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, just finish the bike. Eddie leaned on the counter, studying Ethan with eyes that had seen too much. Jim doesn't ask for favors often. When he does, it's serious. So I'm going to ask you something, and I want the truth. You in trouble? No. You dealing with something dangerous? Ethan thought about the ring in his pocket, the dead rider whose bike he'd stolen, the warnings Jim had given. I'm just trying to save my mom. Eddie watched him for a long moment. Okay, but if that changes, if things get complicated, you call Jim, understand? Yeah. And kid, be careful who you show that bike to when it's done. Some machines carry ghosts. Ethan left with the box and more questions than answers. The parts changed everything. Within 2 weeks, Ethan had the electrical system working perfectly. The carburetor ran smooth. The brakes engaged with solid pressure. The bike was transforming from a skeleton into something that could actually ride. His mother noticed the change in him. You're smiling again, she said one evening, watching him work from her lawn chair outside the workshop. She'd lost more weight, moved slower, but her eyes were still sharp. Making progress, Ethan said, not looking up from adjusting the throttle cable. Let me see it. It's not ready. Ethan, I'm your mother now. Let me see what you've been killing yourself over. He set down his tools and helped her stand. She leaned heavily on his arm as they walked to the workbench where the bike sat under an old sheet. Ethan pulled the sheet away. His mother gasped. The bike gleamed under the work light. The frame had been powder-coated black, the tank painted a deep metallic blue that seemed to shift in the light. Chrome pieces Ethan had spent hours polishing reflected like mirrors. The leather seat was scavenged but restored. The engine, completely rebuilt, sat ready to roar. Oh, Ethan, his mother whispered. It's beautiful. It will be, once I finish the final details. She reached out to touch the tank, her fingers trembling. Your father would be proud. Dad left us with nothing. He left us with you. His mother's eyes met his, and for the first time in months, Ethan saw something other than pain in them. And you're worth more than he ever was. Ethan's throat tightened. Mom, how much do you think you can sell it for? I don't know. Maybe $15,000 if I find the right buyer. 20 if I'm lucky. His mother did the math silently. That would cover 6 months of treatment. 8 if we're careful. 8 months. She said it like a prison sentence and a miracle at the same time. You built me 8 more months. I'm not done yet. She hugged him, her body so thin he was afraid he'd break her. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. Thank you for not giving up. Ethan held her carefully like she was made of glass and pretended his eyes weren't burning. Month 7 brought her the first real test. Ethan had the bike 90% complete when a stranger appeared at the junkyard gate. Not Jim this time, someone younger, maybe 30, with a shaved head and a leather vest that made Ethan's blood freeze. The vest had patches, lots of patches, and across the back, in letters Ethan could read from 50 feet away, Hell's Angels MC. The man walked into the junkyard like he owned it, his boots crunching on gravel, his eyes scanning everything. Ethan stood in the workshop doorway, blocking the view of the bike behind him, his heart hammering against his ribs. Help you, Ethan forced the words out. The man stopped 10 feet away. Heard someone's building bikes out here. Who told you that? Word gets around. Small community. The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Name's Mike. I'm always looking for quality work. Mind if I take a look? Every instinct screamed at Ethan to say no, to turn this man away, to protect the secret he'd been keeping. But saying no would raise suspicion. Acting defensive would invite questions. The only way through was to act normal. Sure, Ethan said, stepping aside. Mike walked into the workshop, his presence filling the small space. His eyes went immediately to the bike on the workbench, and Ethan watched his expression shift from casual interest to sharp focus. Holy hell, Mike breathed. You built this, yeah. How old are you, Benny's? 15. Mike circled the bike, slowly examining every detail. This is professional level work. Where'd you learn? My dad taught me some. Rest I figured out myself. Your dad's still around? No. Mike's hand reached out to touch the fuel tank, and Ethan's stomach dropped. The ring was still hidden inside, wedged in a spot only someone doing a complete teardown would find. But what if Mike knew bikes well enough to sense something was off? This is a late 70s Electroglide frame, right? Mike asked. Yeah, found it in the junkyard, completely trashed. I rebuilt everything from scratch. Engine. Sportster engine modified to fit. Had to custom fab the mounts. Mike nodded appreciatively. Smart. You planning to sell it? When it's done, yeah. How much? Ethan's mind raced. Haven't decided yet. I'll give you $12,000 right now. As is. $12,000. More money than Ethan had ever seen. Enough to buy his mother 4 months, maybe 5. But something was wrong. Mike's interest felt too sharp, too focused. He was looking at the bike the way a cop looks at evidence. I need to finish it first, Ethan said. I've put too much work in to sell it incomplete. Mike's eyes met his and Ethan saw calculation behind them. 15,000, Kev. Today, you walk away, I take the bike. Everybody's happy. No thanks. Kid, I'm offering you more than this bike's worth in its current state. That's not a small favor. I said no. Ethan kept his voice steady despite the fear crawling up his spine. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not selling until it's finished. Mike studied him for a long moment. You know something? You're either very smart or very stupid. I haven't figured out which yet. Probably both. That got a genuine laugh. Fair enough. But here's some free advice, kid. When you do finish it, be careful who you sell to. Some bikes carry history, and history has a way of catching up. The words were too similar to Jim's warning to be coincidence. Mike pulled out a card and set it on the workbench. You change your mind, you call me. Anytime. He left without another word, and Ethan stood frozen until the sound of his motorcycle faded into the distance. Then he grabbed his phone and called Jim. He knows, Ethan said when Jim answered. Someone from the club was just here. He offered me $15,000 for an incomplete bike. He knows something's wrong. Describe him. Ethan did. Mike Raines, Jim said, and his voice carried weight. He's not just someone from the club. He's Jackson's best friend. They rode together for 10 years. Why would he come here? Because he's been looking for Jackson's bike since the day it disappeared. There are people in the club who think Jackson faked his death, that he ran from something. Mike's one of them. Jim paused. Did you take his offer? No. Good. Because if you had, he would have torn that bike apart looking for answers. And when he found the ring, what would happen? You don't want to know, but Ethan, listen to me. You need to finish that bike fast and sell it to someone outside the community. Someone who doesn't know its history. Someone who won't ask questions. How am I supposed to do that? I'm working on it. But in the meantime, you keep your head down and you work fast. If Mike comes back, you tell him the bike's already sold. You understand? Yeah. And Ethan, hide that ring somewhere safe. Not in the bike, not in your house. Somewhere nobody would think to look. The call ended, and Ethan stared at the bike that had gone from salvation to a ticking bomb. He spent the rest of the day working faster than he ever had, driven by fear and determination in equal measure. Every sound made him jump. Every car that passed on the distant road made his heart race. Mike's visit had changed everything. The secret was out or close enough to make no difference. That night, Ethan took the ring and buried it in the junkyard under a rusted water heater in the section nobody ever touched. He marked the spot in his mind and tried to forget it existed. But forgetting was impossible. 2 days later, his mother collapsed. Ethan found her on the kitchen floor unconscious, her breathing shallow and rapid. He called 911 with shaking hands, rode in the ambulance, holding her hand, paced the emergency room while doctors worked. Dehydration and malnutrition, the doctor told him 6 hours later. Her body's shutting down. The cancer's spreading faster than we anticipated. How long? Ethan's voice didn't sound like his own. Without aggressive treatment, weeks, maybe a month. With treatment, how much? The doctor's expression said everything. The hospital has financing options. How much for the treatment she needs right now? Approximately $25,000 for the immediate intervention. After that, ongoing treatment would be, Ethan stopped listening. $25,000. He'd need to sell the bike for more than it was worth and find additional money on top of that. The math didn't work. The timeline didn't work. Nothing worked. His mother woke up 3 hours later, groggy and confused. Ethan. Her hand found his. What happened? You collapsed. You're okay now. I don't feel okay. She tried to sit up, winced, fell back. How bad? He couldn't lie to her. Not anymore. Bad. How bad is bad? They want to start aggressive treatment. It's expensive. His mother closed her eyes. How expensive? More than we have. More than the bike will bring Fecto. I said, yeah. She was quiet for a long time. Then Ethan, I want you to stop. What? Stop working on the bike. Stop trying to save me. Stop sacrificing yourself for someone who's already gone. You're not gone. I'm dying, baby. We both know it. And I can't watch you destroy yourself trying to change it. Tears slid down her cheeks. You've been so strong, so brave, but it's enough. You've done enough. No, Ethan's voice cracked. I'm not giving up. I'm so close, Mom. The bike's almost done. I just need a little more time. We don't have time. Then I'll make time, he was shouting, now didn't care who heard. I'll find a way. I'll finish the bike. I'll sell it. I'll get the money. I will save you. His mother's hand touched his face. You can't save everyone. I can save you. Ethan, I have to try. Don't ask me to stop trying. She studied his face, and whatever she saw there made her nod slowly. Okay, baby. Keep trying. But they both knew the truth. Time was running out, and Ethan was working on a motorcycle that might kill him before it saved anyone. The hospital released his mother 2 days later with medications they couldn't afford and instructions for treatment they couldn't access. Ethan drove her home in silence, the weight of failure pressing down on both of them. How's the bike? She asked as he helped her into the trailer. Almost done, maybe another week. And then I find a buyer and we figure out the rest. She didn't argue. They'd moved past the point where words changed anything. Ethan worked through the night every night, pushing himself past exhaustion into a state where nothing existed except the next connection, the next adjustment, the next problem solved. The bike consumed him completely. On day 9 of month 7, he started the engine for the first time. The sound was thunder and music and prayer all mixed together. The rebuilt motor roared to life, rumbling through the workshop and out into the desert night. Ethan's hands shook as he adjusted the idle, listening to the rhythm, feeling the vibrations through his bones. It worked. Against all odds, with scavenged parts and borrowed knowledge and sheer stubborn will, he'd brought a dead machine back to life. You did it, his mother said from the doorway, wrapped in a blanket, tears streaming down her face. Oh God, Ethan, you actually did it. He killed the engine and turned to her. Not yet. Still needs final adjustments, a test ride detailing. But it runs, it's real. You made something impossible happen. Ethan looked at the bike gleaming and powerful and ready and felt something close to pride war with terror. Because now came the hard part. Now he had to sell it without getting killed. His phone rang. Jim again. I heard the engine, Jim said. Sound travels out here? It works. The bike works. Good, because I've found you a buyer. Someone clean, no connections, cash in hand. But you need to move fast. Mike's been asking questions. He knows you're close to finishing. Who's the buyer? Better you don't know details. Just know he'll pay $20,000 cash. No questions asked if the bike's as good as I've been saying. $20,000, $5,000 short of what his mother needed right now, but enough to buy time. Enough to keep fighting. When? Ethan asked. 3 days. I'll bring him by. Have the bike perfect. Jim, Ethan's voice caught. Thank you. Thank me when your mother's better and you're still breathing. Until then, we're just 2 people trying to outrun ghosts. The line went dead and Ethan looked at the motorcycle that had become his entire world. 3 days to perfect it. 3 days before everything either worked or fell apart completely. He picked up his tools and got back to work because stopping now meant accepting defeat, and Ethan Cole had forgotten how to do that months ago. The first day of the 3, Ethan spent polishing chrome until his reflection looked back at him from every surface. His hands cramped his back, screamed, but he didn't stop. The bike had to be perfect. Had to be worth $20,000 to a stranger who didn't know its history. His mother watched from the trailer window. He could feel her eyes on him even when he couldn't see her face. At midnight, when most people were sleeping, Ethan found a problem with the clutch cable. The tension wasn't right. It would work technically, but not smoothly. Not perfectly. He tore it out and started over. You're going to kill yourself, his mother said. She'd appeared in the workshop doorway, skeletal in her nightgown, swaying slightly. Go back to bed, Mom. I can't sleep knowing you're out here destroying yourself. I'm not destroying myself. I'm finishing what I started. She moved closer, each step careful. Ethan, even if you sell this bike, even if you get the money, it's not enough. We both know that. It buys us time. Time for what? More pain, more hospital visits, more watching you sacrifice everything for someone who's already lost. Ethan's hands froze on the cable. Don't say that. It's true. It's not true until I accept it, and I'm not accepting it. He yanked the cable tight, harder than necessary. I'm not giving up on you. Maybe you should. The words hit him like a physical blow. Ethan dropped the tools and turned to face her. What did you say? His mother's eyes were wet. I'm saying maybe it's time to let go. Maybe it's time to stop fighting a battle we can't win and start preparing for... No. Ethan's voice came out sharp. Don't you dare finish that sentence. Don't you dare give up now, not when I'm this close. Close to what? Bankruptcy, danger, getting yourself hurt over a motorcycle that doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me now. I earned it. Every bolt, every wire, every piece of this machine is mine because I built it from nothing. You built it from someone's grave, Ethan, and graves don't like being disturbed. The truth in her words made him flinch. Jim's bringing a buyer in 3 days. Clean sell, no questions, $20,000. That's 2 months of treatment, maybe 3 if we're careful. 3 more months with you. That's worth fighting for. His mother reached out and touched his face, her hand cold despite the Nevada heat. You're so much like your father, too stubborn to see when you're beaten. Dad gave up and ran. I'm staying and fighting. We're nothing alike. You're exactly alike. You both think you can fix everything if you just work hard enough. But some things can't be fixed, baby. Some things are just broken. Ethan pulled away from her touch. Go to bed, Mom. Please. She stood there a moment longer, then turned and walked back to the trailer, her footsteps silent on the gravel. Ethan went back to work, but his hands were shaking now and not from exhaustion. Day 2 started with a phone call that made Ethan's blood freeze. This is Detective Morrison, Nevada State Police. Is this Ethan Cole? Ethan's first thought was that someone had died. His second thought was worse, someone had found out about the bike. Yeah, this is Ethan. I need to ask you a few questions about a motorcycle. You've been working on a rebuild, is that correct? Who told you that? We received a tip that you might have information about a vehicle connected to an open investigation. I'd like to come by and take a look, if that's all right. What kind of investigation? I'd rather discuss that in person. Are you available this afternoon? Ethan's mind raced. An open investigation. The crash was 5 years old, supposedly closed, unless it wasn't, unless Mike had called the police, unless someone knew more than Jim had told him. I'm pretty busy, Ethan said, trying to keep his voice steady. Can this wait until next week? I'm afraid not. This is a priority case. How about 2 o'clock today? Fine, yeah, 2 o'clock. The call ended and Ethan immediately dialed Jim. The police called, Ethan said before Jim could speak. They want to come look at the bike. They said something about an open investigation. Silence on the line. Jim, you there? When? Today, 2 o'clock. More silence. Then Jim cursed the words sharp and bitter. Mike must have called them, or someone did. They're fishing, trying to see if Jackson's bike turned up. What do I tell them? The truth. You found a frame in your junkyard. You rebuilt it. You don't know anything about its history. Have you registered it yet? No. Good, don't. When they ask about the VIN, you tell them the frame was too damaged to read it. You've been planning to apply for a rebuilt title once it's finished. Will that work? It has to. And Ethan, get that ring somewhere. They won't find it. Not just buried, gone. Destroy it if you have to. I can't destroy it. It's evidence of you being connected to a dead man's motorcycle. That ring is a death sentence if they find it. Get rid of it. Jim hung up. Ethan ran to the junkyard section where he'd buried the ring, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it. He dug frantically, throwing aside rusted metal, cutting his hands on sharp edges, not caring. The ring was gone. He dug deeper, wider, tearing apart the entire area. The water heater he'd used as a landmark was there, but the hole where he'd buried the ring was empty. Someone had taken it. Looking for something, Ethan spun around. Mike Raines stood 20 feet away, the silver ring dangling from his finger, catching the sunlight. That's mine, Ethan said. No, kid. This belonged to my brother, and the fact that you had it buried like a guilty secret tells me you know exactly whose bike you've been rebuilding. I found the frame in the junkyard. I didn't know. Don't lie to me. Mike moved closer, and Ethan saw the anger in his eyes barely controlled. I've been watching this place for a week. Saw you bury this. Saw you panic when Jim called. You know what you have, and you've been trying to hide it. I was trying to save my mother by stealing from the dead. I didn't steal anything. The bike was abandoned, destroyed, nobody wanted it. We wanted it, Mike's voice echoed across the junkyard. We've been looking for Jackson's bike for 5 years. Do you have any idea what it means? What he meant to us? He was your friend, Jim told me. He was my brother, not by blood, but by choice. And when he disappeared, when that bike went missing, there were questions, suspicions. People think he ran, that he betrayed us. But I know Jackson, he wouldn't run, which means someone killed him and hid the evidence. Ethan's stomach dropped. You think someone murdered him? I think someone made it look like an accident and dumped the bike where nobody would find it. Your junkyard. Mike's eyes bored into Ethan. And I think you found proof. There's no proof, just a ring and a destroyed motorcycle. The ring is proof enough. It should have been on his body. The fact that it was hidden in the bike means Jackson put it there. Means he knew he was in danger. Or he crashed and the ring ended up in the fuel tank. Accidents happen. Mike grabbed Ethan by the shirt, lifting him slightly. Don't play games with me, kid. The police are coming here today, aren't they? Someone tipped them off. You tipped them off. Wrong. I would never involve cops in club business. Mike released him. But someone did, which means someone else knows about the bike. Someone who wants the police to find it before I do. Who? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Mike pocketed the ring. Where's the bike now? In my workshop. Show me. No. Mike's expression darkened. Kid, I'm trying to help you. If the wrong people find out you've been rebuilding Jackson's bike, you're in serious danger. The kind that doesn't end with a police visit. Jim said, Jim's trying to protect you by keeping you ignorant. I'm trying to protect you by making you understand what you're dealing with. Mike's voice dropped. There are people in the club who think Jackson was killed because he knew too much. If they find out his bike resurfaced with evidence hidden inside it, they'll make sure it disappears again, along with anyone who's touched it. Ethan's throat felt tight. The ring is all I found, I swear. You're sure nothing else hidden in the frame? No papers, no photos, nothing, just the ring. Mike studied him, searching for lies. Okay, here's what's going to happen. When the police come, you tell them exactly what Jim said to tell them. Unknown V. Iron salvaged frame rebuilt from scratch. I'll back you up. Why would you help me? Because you're a kid trying to save his mom, and that's something Jackson would have respected. And because if you're telling the truth about only finding the ring, then you're just collateral damage in someone else's war. Mike pulled out his phone. But I need you to do something for me. What? When you sell this bike, I need to know who buys it. Names, contact information, everything. Why? Because Jackson's bike belongs to the club. Eventually, we're taking it back. But right now, your mother needs that money more than we need closure. So sell it, save her, and when the time comes, you tell me where it went. Deal. Ethan wanted to refuse, wanted to tell Mike to go to hell, wanted to protect the buyer Jim had found. But Mike had the ring. Mike had leverage. And Mike was offering him a way out. Deal, Ethan said. Mike nodded. The police will be here in an hour. Get your story straight. And kid, if they ask about me, you've never seen me before in your life. He walked away, and Ethan stood alone in the junkyard, wondering how many deals with dangerous men he'd have to make before this was over. Detective Morrison arrived at exactly 2 o'clock in an unmarked sedan. She was younger than Ethan expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Ethan Cole. Yes, ma'am. I'm Detective Morrison. Thanks for meeting with me. She looked around the junkyard. Quite a place you've got here. It was my father's. I'm just trying to keep it running. Where's your father now? Gone, left a few years back. She made a note in a small pad. And your mother? Sick, cancer. Morrison's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry to hear that. This must be a difficult time. We manage. I'm sure you do. She put away the pad. Can I see the motorcycle you've been working on? Ethan led her to the workshop, his pulse racing. The bike sat under the work light, gleaming and perfect looking. nothing like the destroyed wreck he had found buried in scrap metal. Morrison walked around it, slowly examining every detail. This is impressive work. Thank you. How long have you been working on it? About 9 months. And you're how old? 15. She looked at him with something like respect. 15. You taught yourself. Mostly, my dad showed me some basics before he left. Morrison pulled out her phone and took several photos of the bike from different angles. Do you know what model this is? Harley Davidson Electroglide. Late 70s, I think. The frame was pretty damaged, so it was hard to tell exactly. Where did you get the frame? Here it was, the question that could end everything. Found it in the junkyard, buried under a pile of scrap metal in the back section. Been there for years, probably. Do you have the VINs? The frame was too corroded to read it. I've been planning to apply for a rebuilt title once I finish. Morrison made more notes. And you don't know where it came from originally? No, ma'am. Half the stuff in this yard came from my father's deals. He wasn't great about keeping records. Have you tried to trace its history? Ethan forced himself to look confused. Why would I? It was junk when I found it. Because this bike matches the description of a vehicle that went missing 5 years ago. A motorcycle belonging to a man named Jackson Wade. He died in a crash, but his bike was never recovered. I didn't know that. Morrison watched him carefully. You've never heard that name, Jackson Wade? No, ma'am. What about the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club? Ethan's heart skipped, but he kept his face neutral. I've heard of them. Everyone has. Ever had any contact with them? No. No one from the club has come asking about this bike. The lie felt heavy, but Ethan pushed it out. No, should they have? Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Mr. Cole, I'm going to be straight with you. Someone called in a tip that you might have information about Jackson Wade's disappearance. They suggested your family might have been involved in disposing of evidence. The accusation hit Ethan like a punch. That's insane. My father was a junk dealer, not a criminal. Your father had connections to some questionable people. Bought and sold items that weren't always acquired legally. I don't know anything about that. I was 12 when he left. And you expect me to believe you just happened to find this particular motorcycle in your junkyard, the same bike that's been missing for 5 years. I expect you to believe the truth. I found a destroyed frame. I spent 9 months rebuilding it, and I'm trying to sell it to pay for my mother's cancer treatment. That's it. That's the whole story. Morrison studied him, and Ethan could see her weighing his words, looking for cracks in the story. Can I see the frame number location, she finally asked. Ethan showed her where the VIN should have been stamped. The metal was corroded, pitted, genuinely unreadable. He'd gotten lucky the damage was real. Morrison took more photos, then straightened. All right, Mr. Cole, I'm going to need you to not sell this motorcycle until we complete our investigation. Ethan's stomach dropped. How long will that take? A few weeks, maybe longer. I don't have a few weeks. My mother needs treatment now. I understand, but this is a potential homicide investigation. You just said it was a crash. The crash might not have been an accident, which makes this bike evidence. Morrison's voice was firm, but not unkind. I'll try to expedite the process, but until we clear it, the bike stays here. You can't do this. I can, and I am. If you interfere with this investigation, if you try to sell the bike or move it, you'll be charged with obstruction. Do you understand? Ethan wanted to scream, to fight, to do anything but accept this. 3 days until the buyer arrived. 3 days until $20,000 that would save his mother's life. And now a detective was telling him he couldn't sell. I understand, he forced out. Morrison handed him a card. If you remember anything about how this bike ended up here, you call me. Anything at all. She left, and Ethan stood in the workshop staring at the motorcycle that had gone from salvation to prison. His phone rang. Jim. The police just left, Ethan said. I know, I've been watching from the road. What did you tell them? Everything you said to say. But Jim, she's not letting me sell the bike. She said it's evidence in a homicide investigation. Silence. Jim, a homicide investigation, not an accident. Someone's pushing this, making it official. Jim's voice was tight. Did she say who called in the tip? No, just that someone suggested my family was involved in disposing of evidence. Your family, not you specifically. Jim cursed again. Someone's trying to connect your father to Jackson's death. This is bigger than I thought. What does that mean? It means people are scared, people with something to hide, and they're trying to bury the bike again before anyone finds what Jackson hid. The ring, Mike already has it. Not the ring, something else. Something Jackson knew that got him killed. Jim paused. Ethan, I need you to think very carefully. When you rebuilt the bike, did you find anything else, anything unusual? No, I already told Mike. Mike has the ring. He was here. He dug it up, said he'd help me with the police if I told him who bought the bike. Jim's breath came harsh over the phone. Jesus Christ, kid. Do you understand what you've done? Mike's been investigating Jackson's death for 5 years. If he thinks you have information, I don't have information. There was nothing but the ring. Then why did someone tip off the police? Why now, right before you sell? Jim's voice rose. Because someone knows you're close to finishing. Someone who wants that bike locked down before it can be examined by the right people. Or the wrong people. Same difference in this case. Jim was quiet for a moment. The buyer I found, he's willing to wait a few weeks if necessary. But your mother doesn't have that kind of time, does she? The doctor said maybe a month, less if we don't start treatment. Then we need a new plan, something faster. Like what? I don't know yet, but Ethan, listen to me. Someone out there is very nervous about this bike. Nervous enough to involve the police, which is a last resort for anyone connected to the club. That means whatever Jackson hid, it's worth killing for. And anyone who gets in the way. A crash from the trailer made Ethan spin around. His phone dropped from his hand as he ran. His mother was on the floor again, convulsing, her eyes rolled back, foam at her mouth. Mom! Ethan dropped beside her, trying to remember what the doctors had told him about seizures. Don't restrain, protect the head, time it, call for help. He grabbed his phone with shaking hands and dialed 911 for the second time in 2 weeks. The ambulance took 12 minutes to arrive. 12 minutes of Ethan holding his mother's head, watching her body shake, feeling completely helpless. By the time the paramedics loaded her, the seizure had stopped, but she wasn't waking up. You need to come with us, the paramedic said. I can't. I have to. Ethan looked at the workshop, at the bike, at everything he'd been fighting for. Son, your mother's condition is critical. You need to be at the hospital. Ethan grabbed his keys and followed them, leaving the junkyard unguarded for the first time in 9 months. He didn't see the figure watching from the road, didn't notice the camera taking photos of the workshop, didn't know that while he was racing to the hospital, someone was breaking into his sanctuary. The hospital became Ethan's prison for the next 18 hours. His mother remained unconscious, her body failing in ways the doctors explained with words that sounded like a foreign language. Tumor progression, cerebral edema, metabolic crisis. We need to start aggressive treatment immediately, the doctor said. Without it, she has days, maybe a week. How much? The number the doctor gave made Ethan's vision blur. $30,000, more than before. More than the bike could ever bring. I don't have that, Ethan said. The hospital has financing. I don't have anything. His voice broke. I've been trying, I've been working, but I don't have it. The doctor put a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry, we'll do what we can with comfort care, but without treatment. She's going to die. Yes. The word was so simple, so final. Ethan sat in the waiting room and felt everything he'd built over 9 months crumble into dust. The bike didn't matter. The buyer didn't matter. The police investigation didn't matter. His mother was dying and nothing he'd done had changed that. His phone rang. Unknown number. What? Ethan said, his voice dead. Ethan Cole. This is Marcus Walker. People call me Iron Jack. I'm the president of the Hells Angels Nevada chapter, and I believe you have something that belongs to us. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Don't lie to me, son. Mike Raines told me about the bike, told me about the ring, told me you've been rebuilding Jackson Wade's motorcycle in your junkyard. Marcus's voice was deep, controlled, dangerous. And I'm calling to tell you that tomorrow morning, me and my brothers are coming to collect what's ours. The police seized it. It's evidence. The police don't have jurisdiction over club property. That bike belongs to us. The ring belongs to us. And if you found anything else, any papers, any recordings, any evidence of what Jackson knew that belongs to us too, there's nothing else. Then you have nothing to worry about. We'll take the bike, you'll walk away, everyone lives. Marcus paused. But Ethan, if you are lying, if you've hidden something, if you've sold information to anyone, the police, the press, rival clubs, then we have a problem. And our problems don't end quietly. I'm at the hospital. My mother's dying. I don't care about your bike or your club or any of this. Just leave me alone. I'm sorry about your mother, truly. But that doesn't change what needs to happen. Marcus's voice softened slightly. Son, I know you're just a kid trying to help his family. I respect that. But you got involved in something bigger than you understand. Tomorrow morning, we're coming. If you're smart, you'll be there to hand over the keys. The call ended. Ethan sat in the sterile hospital waiting room, his mother dying in a room down the hall, a motorcycle club preparing to take the only thing he'd built, and felt the universe crushing him under weight he couldn't carry. Then his phone buzzed with a text from Jim. Don't go to the junkyard tomorrow. They're not coming for the bike. They're coming for you. Ethan called Jim back immediately, his fingers fumbling on the phone screen. What do you mean they're coming for me? Marcus doesn't just want the bike. He wants to know what you know, what you've seen, what Jackson might have told you through whatever evidence you found. Jim's breathing was ragged, and the only way to make sure you don't talk is to make sure you can't. I found a ring. That's it. I keep telling everyone. It doesn't matter what you found. It matters what they think you found. Jackson was about to expose something big, something that would have destroyed half the leadership. His death wasn't an accident, Ethan. It was an execution. And anyone connected to his bike is a liability. Ethan's hand shook so hard he almost dropped the phone. So what do? You run. Tonight, take your mother and disappear. She's unconscious. She's dying. I can't move her. Then you leave her and save yourself. I'm not abandoning my mother. Then you're signing your death warrant. Jim's voice cracked. Ethan, listen to me. Marcus Walker doesn't make empty threats. When he says he's coming, he means 300 brothers rolling in like an army. You can't fight that. You can't negotiate with that. Your only option is to not be there. Why are you helping me? Why do you care what happens to some kid you barely know? Silence on the line, heavy and painful. Because Jackson was my nephew. Because I introduced him to the club. Because his blood is on my hands. Jim's voice dropped to almost a whisper. And I'll be damned if I let another kid die, because I didn't do enough. Ethan looked down the hospital hallway toward his mother's room. I can't leave her, Jim. Even if it means they kill me, I can't. You're just like him, too loyal for your own good. Jim exhaled slowly. Okay, then we do this the hard way. You go to the junkyard tomorrow, you face Marcus, but you do exactly what I tell you when I tell you. Understand? What's the plan? The plan is you survive long enough for the truth to matter. I'm making some calls. Don't go to the junkyard until I contact you. Jim paused. And Ethan, if things go wrong tomorrow, if it looks like they're going to hurt you, you tell them everything. The ring, the bike, me, all of it. Your life is worth more than secrets. The call ended before Ethan could respond. He sat in the waiting room until dawn, watching nurses move through the halls, listening to machines beep in distant rooms, and trying to figure out how his attempt to save his mother had turned into a death sentence. At 6 a.m., a nurse touched his shoulder. Your mother's awake. She's asking for you. Ethan followed her to the room where his mother lay connected to tubes and monitors, her face so pale she looked like a ghost already. Hey, baby, she whispered. Hey, Mom. He took her hand, careful not to disturb the IV. You look terrible. You look worse. She laughed, then winced. Fair. What happened? Why am I here? You had a seizure. You've been out for almost a day. A day. Her eyes widened. The bike, the sale, the buyer. It's complicated. Ethan, what did you do? I rebuilt a motorcycle that apparently belonged to someone important, and now some very dangerous people want it back. His mother's grip tightened on his hand despite her weakness. How dangerous? Dangerous enough that I might not come home today. Then don't go. Stay here with me. They know where I live, Mom. If I don't show up, they'll come looking. And I'd rather face them on my terms than have them find me hiding in a hospital. You're 15 years old. You shouldn't have to face anything. I stopped being a kid the day Dad left and you got sick. I've been facing things ever since. Ethan squeezed her hand. But I need you to know in case something happens that I don't regret it. Any of it. The work, the risk, trying to save you. I'd do it all again. Tears rolled down his mother's face. You already saved me, Ethan. You gave me 9 more months with the most amazing son in the world. That's more than enough. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. A doctor entered with a clipboard. Mrs. Cole, we need to discuss treatment options. Ethan stood. I should go? No. His mother's voice was stronger than it had been in weeks. Stay. You need to hear this too. The doctor looked uncomfortable. The treatment we discussed would extend your life potentially by several months. But without payment arrangements, we can't proceed. I'm sorry. How much time without treatment? His mother asked. Days. A week at most. She nodded like she'd expected it. Then we skip treatment. We focus on comfort. And we spend whatever time I have left together not fighting a battle we can't win. Mom, no. Yes, Ethan, I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of pain. I'm tired of watching you destroy yourself for me. She looked at the doctor. Start comfort care. Let me go peacefully. The doctor nodded and left, giving them privacy. You're giving up, Ethan said. I'm letting go. There's a difference. I can still get the money. I can find a way. By getting yourself killed. Absolutely not. His mother pulled him closer. You listen to me, Ethan Cole. Whatever happens today, whatever those people want, you give it to them. The bike, the ring, whatever. Your life is worth more than metal and money. But you, I'm already gone, baby. We both know it. Now you need to focus on staying alive so you can have the future I won't see. She touched his face. Promise me. Promise you'll walk away from this. Ethan couldn't speak past the lump in his throat, so he just nodded. His mother smiled. Good boy. Now go deal with your mess and come back safe so we can play cards like we used to. He kissed her forehead and left before she could see him cry. The drive back to the junkyard took 2 hours because Ethan kept pulling over trying to make himself turn around and run. But every time he thought about disappearing, he thought about his mother dying alone, wondering if he'd survived. So he kept driving. His phone rang when he was 10 minutes from home. Jim, you on your way? Yeah. Good, listen carefully. When they arrive, don't argue. Don't defend yourself. Don't try to explain. Just hand over the bike and apologize. Apologize for what? For taking what wasn't yours, for not understanding, for being ignorant. Ego gets people killed, Ethan. Humility keeps them breathing. And if that doesn't work, then you run and you don't stop running until you're in a different state. Jim paused. I'll be watching from a distance. If shooting starts, I can't help you. But if you make it out, I'll have a car waiting on Route 95. You think there's going to be shooting? I think Marcus is unpredictable. Some days he's reasonable, other days he's not. You just have to pray this is a good day. The junkyard appeared ahead, looking exactly as Ethan had left it. The workshop door was open, swaying slightly in the desert wind. They're already here, Ethan said. What? The workshop door is open. I locked it when I left. Get out of there, now. But Ethan was already parking, already opening his door, already walking toward the workshop, because turning back now meant they'd hunt him forever. He pushed the door open wider. The bike was gone. The workbench where it had sat for 9 months was empty, except for oil stains and scattered tools. Someone had taken it during the night while Ethan sat in a hospital thinking about death. No, he whispered. No. His phone rang again, not Jim this time, Marcus. Looking for something. You took it. You took the bike. We reclaimed what belongs to us. There's a difference. Marcus's voice was calm, almost friendly. You did good work, kid. The bike looks brand new. Better than Jackson kept it, honestly. That bike was my mother's only chance. Your mother's dying anyway. I checked. Terminal cancer, no insurance, no hope. The bike wouldn't have changed that. Rage flooded through Ethan, hot and blinding. You had no right. We had every right. That bike is club property. The ring is club property. And now we're going to discuss what else you found that belongs to us. I didn't find anything else. Then you won't mind if we search the junkyard thoroughly. Ethan heard engines in the distance growing louder. Not one or two bikes. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. What did you do? Ethan asked. I called the brothers, all of them, every chapter in Nevada, California, Arizona. They're coming to pay their respects to Jackson and collect his legacy. Marcus paused. And to make sure nothing leaves this junkyard that shouldn't. The engines grew louder, a rolling thunder that shook the ground. Ethan walked out of the workshop and saw them coming down the highway, a river of motorcycles stretching back farther than he could see, chrome and leather and power all converging on his tiny junkyard. How many? Ethan breathed. 367 brothers and sisters. The largest gathering we've had in a decade, all because of what you found. Marcus's voice carried through the phone and from somewhere in the approaching mass. You should feel honored, kid. Jackson was important to us. The bikes began arriving, filling the junkyard surrounding the trailer and workshop, blocking every exit. Men and women in leather vests climbed off their rides and stood watching Ethan like he was on trial. Then the crowd parted, and a man who could only be Marcus Walker rode through. He was massive, 6'5" at least, with shoulders like a bull and a beard streaked with gray. His vest was covered in patches that meant things Ethan didn't understand, but the way everyone deferred to him made his authority clear. Marcus killed his engine and climbed off. He moved with the confidence of someone who'd never been afraid of anything in his life. Ethan Cole, he said, and his voice carried across the junkyard. Do you know why we're here? Ethan's mouth was dry. For the bike. For the truth. Marcus walked closer and Ethan fought the urge to step back. Jackson Wade was my friend, my brother. And 5 years ago, he called me in the middle of the night, scared and rambling about ledgers and recordings and proof. He said if anything happened to him, I needed to find his bike, that everything would be hidden in the bike. There was nothing in the bike, just the ring. Rings are sentimental. They're not proof. Marcus stopped 5 feet away. Where is it, kid? What did Jackson hide? I tore that bike apart piece by piece. If there was something hidden, I would have found it. Maybe you did and you're lying. Maybe you sold it already. Maybe you're smarter than you look. Mike Raines appeared from the crowd holding something in his hand. He walked to Marcus and whispered in his ear. Marcus's expression darkened. Is that true? Is what true? Ethan asked. Mike says you've been making calls, lots of calls, to numbers we can't trace, to people we don't know. Marcus's voice dropped. Who have you been talking to, Ethan? My uncle, Jim Walker. He's been helping me with the rebuild. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Several bikers in the crowd reacted, whispers spreading like wildfire. Jim Walker, Marcus repeated. Jim Walker is your uncle. Not my uncle. He was Jackson's uncle. He's been, Jim Walker is dead, someone shouted from the crowd. He died 3 years ago, another voice added. Cancer took him, a third said. Ethan's blood turned to ice. That's not possible. I've been talking to him for months. He helped me find parts. He set up the buyer. Marcus grabbed Ethan by the shirt, lifting him off the ground. You're lying. I'm not. He called me. He came to the junkyard. He warned me about you. Jim Walker is buried in Phoenix. I was at his funeral. I gave the eulogy. Marcus's face was inches from Ethan's. So whoever you've been talking to, it's not Jim Walker. He dropped Ethan, who fell to the gravel, his mind reeling. The man who'd helped him, who'd warned him, who'd found him parts in a buyer and guided him through 9 months of work. That man wasn't Jim Walker, so who was he? Who was? The buyer? Ethan gasped. He said he found a buyer, someone who'd paid $20,000, no questions asked. Marcus pulled out his phone. When's the meeting? Today. He said he'd call with the location. And you believed him? I had no reason not to. Marcus made a call, speaking rapidly to someone Ethan couldn't hear. When he finished, his expression was grim. We've got people checking on Jim Walker's identity. But in the meantime, you're going to tell me everything this man said to you. Every conversation, every instruction, every detail. Ethan talked for 20 minutes, the words spilling out in a rush, while 367 bikers listened in silence. He told them about finding the bike, about the first call from Jim, about the warnings and the parts in the buyer. When he finished, Marcus was pacing, his jaw clenched. You've been played, Mike said quietly. Someone's been using you to flush out the evidence. What evidence? Ethan shouted. There is no evidence. Then why would someone impersonate a dead man to help you rebuild that specific bike? Marcus stopped pacing and looked at Ethan. Unless the evidence isn't in the bike, It's in what rebuilding the bike would reveal. Detective Morrison's car pulled up to the junkyard entrance blocked by motorcycles. She got out, surveying the scene with wide eyes. "What's going on here?" she called. "Club business," Marcus called back. "I have a warrant to search this property." "For what?" "Evidence in a homicide in Sister Hazel." Morrison pushed through the crowd, her hand on her weapon. "Everyone needs to clear this area now." "We're not going anywhere," Marcus said calmly. "That bike belongs to us. We're taking it back." "That bike is evidence. You're not taking out anything." The tension ratcheted up instantly. 367 bikers against one detective. The math was obvious. But Morrison stood her ground. "I've called for backup. State police are en route. You've got 5 minutes to disperse or everyone here gets arrested for obstruction." "You don't have a jail big enough?" Someone laughed. Morrison ignored them, looking at Ethan. "Where's the bike?" "They took it last night." "Who took it?" "We did," Marcus said, "and we're keeping it." "Then you're all under arrest." The sound of sirens in the distance made several bikers tense, hands moving toward weapons Ethan couldn't see but knew were there. "Don't," Marcus said sharply. "Nobody moves." The state police arrived in force, 10 cars, 20 officers, all armed and ready. The junkyard had become a standoff. Then Ethan's phone rang. "Jim." Calling. Ethan answered with shaking hands and put it on speaker. "Hello, Ethan. I see you've made some friends." The voice was the same one that had guided him for months, but now it sounded different, colder. "Tell Marcus I'm impressed. I didn't think he'd figure it out this fast." Marcus leaned toward the phone. "Who is this?" "Someone who knew Jackson very well, someone who knows what he hid, and someone who's been waiting 5 years for that bike to resurface so I could collect what's mine." "What did Jackson have on you?" "Names, dates, transactions, proof of embezzlement from club funds totaling $3 million. Proof that certain high-ranking members have been stealing from their brothers for a decade." The man paused. "Jackson was going to expose all of it, so we made sure he couldn't." "We," Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. "There are others, people you trust, people in this very crowd." The man laughed. "The evidence isn't in the bike, Marcus. It's in the boy." Everyone looked at Ethan. "What?" Ethan whispered. "You've been photographing every step of the rebuild, haven't you? Posting progress updates online, documenting every part, every modification, every detail." Ethan's stomach dropped. He'd posted photos to a motorcycle forum looking for advice, sharing his work. Those photos show something Jackson embedded in the frame itself. A micro SD card welded inside a structural tube invisible unless you cut the frame apart, which you did during your rebuild. And in your photos posted online for anyone to see is proof of its location. Marcus grabbed Ethan's phone. "Where's the card now?" "Safe. But I'll trade it. The card for the boy's mother's medical bills, all of them, paid in full, plus enough money for her to live comfortably for whatever time she has left." "Why would you do that?" "Because I'm not a monster. The kid's just collateral damage. He doesn't deserve to watch his mother die." The man's voice softened. "Jackson would have wanted this. He always said protect the innocent." "Jackson would have wanted you dead," Marcus spat. "Probably, but he's not here to make that call. You are. So what's it worth to you, Marcus? Your vengeance or a dying woman's life?" The junkyard fell silent except for the wind and the crackling of police radios. Marcus looked at Ethan, then at the crowd, then back at the phone. "How much?" he finally asked. 50,000. Cash. Delivered to an account I'll provide. The money transfers, I send the location of the SD card. Everyone walks away. "And the names the people who helped you kill Jackson?" "On the card. Everything's on the card." Marcus's hands were shaking with rage, but his voice stayed level. "You have 1 hour." The call ended. Morrison stepped forward. "You're not seriously considering paying a murderer. I'm considering saving a kid's mother while getting justice for my brother. Stay out of it." Marcus turned to the crowd. "Someone collect 50,000. Now." The bikers moved without question, making calls, pulling cash, organizing faster than seemed possible. Mike approached Ethan. "The photos, where are they posted?" "Classic Bike Forum, under username WrenchKid15. Mike pulled out his phone and started scrolling. Within seconds, his face went pale. "Oh my God." "What?" Marcus demanded. "I can see it. In the photo from month 6 when he cut the frame to reinforce it. There's something inside the tube, something small. Mike zoomed in. The card is real. 30 minutes later, a duffel bag full of cash sat at Marcus's feet. He pulled out his phone and called the number back. "We have your money. Transfer it to this account." The man rattled off numbers. "I'll wait." The transfer took 15 minutes of tense silence. When it completed, Marcus said, "It's done now. Where's the card?" "Check the fuel tank of Jackson's bike. It's magnetic attached to the inside wall near the petcock. I put it there myself 5 years ago, right before I drove that bike off a cliff with a weighted dummy strapped to it." Marcus looked at Mike. "Get the bike." 3 bikers ran to retrieve it from wherever they'd hidden it. "You were there," Marcus said into the phone. "You killed him. I tried to reason with him. He wouldn't listen. Some things are bigger than loyalty." The man paused. "The card is there. Use it wisely." The line went dead. The bike arrived and Mike immediately started checking the fuel tank. His hands emerged holding a tiny SD card in a waterproof case. "Got it," he whispered. Morrison moved forward. "That's evidence. Hand it over." "This is club justice," Marcus said. "You want to read what's on here after we're done? Fine, but we handle our own first." He handed the card to Mike, who plugged it into a laptop someone produced. The crowd gathered around as files opened. Spreadsheets, photos, audio recordings, names Ethan didn't recognize, but that made hardened bikers curse and shout. "3 members of the executive board," Mike said, his voice shaking. "They've been stealing for years. Millions, and Jackson found proof." Marcus's face was stone. "Who?" Mike showed him the screen. Marcus's fist went through the laptop. "Everyone out," he said quietly. "Officers, take what you need for your investigation. Brothers, we ride, Swite." And in the junkyard emptied in minutes, 367 bikes roaring to life and disappearing into the desert, leaving only tire tracks and the smell of exhaust. Morrison approached Ethan with handcuffs. "Wait," Marcus said, turning back. "The kid's innocent. He was used. He'll need to give a statement." "He will, but not today." Marcus pulled an envelope from his vest and handed it to Ethan. "The rest of the money. All 50,000. It's yours." Ethan opened it with trembling hands. Inside was cash and a note. "For your mother. From Jackson's fund. He would have wanted this." "I don't understand," Ethan whispered. "Jackson had life insurance. Money we've been holding for 5 years, waiting to find out what happened to him. Now we know, and that money goes to someone who needs it." Marcus put a heavy hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You saved his memory, kid. You brought him home. That's worth more than you know." Then Marcus climbed on his bike and rode away, leaving Ethan standing in his junkyard with enough money to save his mother's life, holding evidence that would destroy careers and lives, and wondering how rebuilding a broken motorcycle had led to all of this. Detective Morrison lowered the handcuffs. "Looks like this is your lucky day." Ethan looked at the money, thought about his mother lying in a hospital bed, and realized Jim, whoever he really was, had been right about one thing. Sometimes the only way to save someone is to risk everything. And sometimes when you're desperate enough, the universe sends help from the most unexpected places. Even if that help comes from ghost lies and a brotherhood of outlaws who live by their own code. Ethan stared at the envelope in his hands, $50,000, feeling both impossibly heavy and weightless at the same time. "I need to go," he said to Morrison. "My mother, you need to give a statement first. This is a homicide investigation. My mother is dying in a hospital right now, and I finally have the money to save her. You can arrest me, you can take the money, you can do whatever you want. But if she dies while I'm sitting in an interrogation room, I will never forgive you, and neither will you." Morrison studied his face, then stepped aside. "Go, but you call me tomorrow. We're not done." Ethan was already running to his mother's car. The drive to the hospital took an hour because Ethan's hands wouldn't stop shaking enough to go the speed limit. He kept expecting police to pull him over, or bikers to run him off the road, or the money to somehow disappear like everything else in his life. But he made it. He burst through the hospital doors, clutching the envelope, and ran straight to the billing office. "My mother is Ann Cole. She needs treatment. I have the money." The woman behind the desk looked at him like he was crazy. "Son, you need to calm down. I have $50,000, cash, right here." He dumped the envelope on her desk bills, spilling everywhere. "How much do you need right now to start saving her life?" The woman's eyes went wide. She picked up her phone and made a call Ethan couldn't hear over the rushing in his ears. A man in a suit appeared 2 minutes later. "I'm the hospital administrator. Where did this money come from?" "It doesn't matter. It's legal. It's mine. Can you save my mother or not?" The administrator looked at the cash, then at Ethan's desperate face. "We'll need to verify the amount and process the payment, but yes, if this covers the immediate treatment costs, we can begin within the hour." Ethan's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the floor, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you. Thank God, thank you." They counted the money, $48,700. More than enough to start treatment and cover weeks of care beyond that. The administrator handed Ethan a receipt. "Your mother's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have her." "Where's the rest of the money from that envelope? You said 50,000. Ethan touched his pocket where he'd kept $1,300 separate. "That's for something else. Something I need to do." He waited in his mother's room while doctors prepped her for treatment. She was awake, but barely, her eyes unfocused. "Ethan," she whispered. "I'm here, Mom. Did something happen? I feel different. They're starting treatment. Real treatment. You're going to be okay." Her hand found his. "How?" "The bike. It worked. Everything worked." The lie came easier than the truth would have. She didn't need to know about the club, the standoff, the murders, and betrayals. She just needed to know she was safe. "You did it," she breathed. "You actually did it. We did it together. You kept fighting. That's what mattered." A nurse entered to start the IV that would begin flooding his mother's system with medications that cost more per dose than most people made in a week. "You should go home and rest," the nurse said to Ethan. "This will take several hours." "I'm not leaving." "Son, you look like you're about to collapse." "I'll collapse here then," the nurse smiled. "Stubborn, just like your mom." Ethan stayed in the chair beside his mother's bed while chemicals dripped into her veins, and he thought about everything that had led to this moment. 9 months of work, a dead man's motorcycle, a fake uncle who'd orchestrated everything, 367 bikers, $50,000, and somehow impossibly his mother was going to live. But something nagged at him. The voice on the phone, the man pretending to be Jim. He'd said he put the SD card in the fuel tank 5 years ago, right before staging Jackson's death. But why help Ethan at all? Why guide him through the rebuild, provide parts and arrange a buyer? The answer hit him like ice water. The man had needed Ethan to document the rebuild publicly. The photos online were the key. They showed exactly where the SD card was hidden. The fake Jim had been using Ethan as bait, knowing Marcus would eventually find the bike, find the photos, find the evidence. But why not just tell Marcus directly? Unless the real target wasn't Marcus. Unless exposing the corruption was just the first step in something bigger. Ethan's phone buzzed. Unknown number. His blood froze. He knew who it was before answering. "Enjoying your mother's treatment." The voice that had claimed to be Jim Walker. "What do you want?" "To congratulate you. You played your part perfectly. The evidence is out, the traitors are exposed, and your mother lives. Everyone wins. Except Jackson and the real Jim Walker. Jim died of cancer, kid. Natural causes. I just borrowed his name for a while." The man paused. And Jackson knew what he was signing up for when he decided to be a hero. Heroes die. That's what makes them heroes. "You killed him." "I removed a problem. There's a difference." No remorse in his voice, just cold calculation. Jackson was going to destroy the club over money. Money that was being used for good things, charity, helping brothers in need, supporting families. He didn't understand the bigger picture. "You were stealing." "I was redistributing, and I would have gotten away with it if Jackson hadn't been so righteous." The man laughed. "But here's the thing, Ethan. You think giving Marcus that SD card solved anything? You think the corruption is over? What are you talking about? The names on that card, they're scapegoats, real enough to be believable, guilty enough to take the fall. But the real power, the real money, that's still in play. And now that Marcus has cleaned house of my competition, I'm in an even better position." Ethan's stomach dropped. "You played everyone. I played the game, and I won. Marcus thinks he got justice. The club thinks it's purified, and I walk away richer and smarter than before." The man's voice softened. "But I'm not a monster, kid. I kept my word. Your mother gets her treatment. You get to keep the leftover money. Everyone's happy." People died. People always die. The question is whether their death means something. Jackson's death exposed corruption. That's a legacy. That's purpose. The man paused. What's your purpose now, Ethan? You saved your mother. What are you going to do next? I'm going to tell Marcus everything. No, you're not. Because if you do, I'll make one phone call, and that treatment your mother's receiving, it'll be her last. The hospital will find out the money came from a criminal enterprise. They'll refund it to the club, and your mother will be right back where she started. You can't do that. I can do whatever I want. I have connections you can't imagine, money you can't trace, power that doesn't show up on any SD card. The man's voice turned cold. You got what you wanted. Be smart enough to keep it. The line went dead. Ethan sat frozen, the phone in his hand, understanding the true price of his mother's life. Silence. Complicity. Becoming part of a lie that would let a murderer walk free. His mother stirred in the bed. Who was that? Nobody? Odi. Wrong number. She studied his face with eyes that were already clearer from the medication. You're lying. Yeah. Is it bad? It's complicated. She reached for his hand. Ethan, whatever happened to get this money, whatever you had to do or see or promise, I release you from it. You don't owe me your soul. Mom, I mean it. If there's something you need to do, something that's eating you up inside, you do it. Don't sacrifice your integrity for me. Ethan thought about Marcus, about the club, about justice and revenge, and the tangled web of lies he'd stumbled into. Then he thought about his mother's face when the doctor said she had days to live, about 9 months of bleeding hands and sleepless nights, about the desperation that had driven him to rebuild a dead man's motorcycle in the first place. What would you do, he asked. His mother was quiet for a long time. I'd probably keep the secret. I'd hate myself for it, but I'd keep it. Because some fights aren't yours to fight, and some truths cost more than they're worth. That's the coward's answer. No, baby, that's the survivor's answer. And survival isn't cowardice when you're protecting the people you love. Ethan sat with that for hours while his mother drifted in and out of medicated sleep. By the time the sun set, he'd made his decision. He called Marcus. This better be important, Marcus answered. The man on the phone, the one who had the SD card. He's not done. The names on the card are just scapegoats. Silence then. How do you know? He called me, told me everything. He's still out there, still in the club somewhere, still stealing. Did he say who he is? No, but he's high enough up to make threats stick. He said if I talk, he'll take away my mother's treatment. Can he do that? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Ethan's voice cracked. But I'm telling you anyway because Jackson deserves better than being used as a pawn. Marcus was quiet for so long, Ethan thought he'd hung up. Then, you're a good kid, Ethan. Stupid, but good. What are you going to do? What I should have done 5 years ago. Clean house. For real this time. Marcus paused. But that means you're in danger. If this guy knows you talked, he'll come for you. I know. So you need protection. And I know people who owe me favors. People who can keep you and your mother safe until this is over. I don't want to owe the club anything else, Winbaum. You don't owe us, we owe you. You brought Jackson home. That's a debt we pay. Marcus's voice turned gentle, almost fatherly. Kid, I've got daughters your age. If they were in your position, I'd want someone to help them. Let me help you. Ethan's throat tightened. Okay, good. Stay at the hospital tonight. I'm sending someone to watch your mother's room. Tomorrow, we move you both somewhere safe. And then what? Then you let us handle our business and you focus on being a kid again. The call ended, and Ethan felt the weight of 9 months finally lift from his shoulders. The next morning, a woman in a leather vest appeared at the hospital room door. She was maybe 40 with kind eyes and tattoos covering both arms. I'm Sarah. Marcus sent me. I'll be staying with your mother while you handle some things. What things? Mike wants to see you at the junkyard. He says it's important. Ethan didn't want to go back there, didn't want to face the place that had consumed his life. But he owed Mike answers, and he owed the club honesty. He drove to the junkyard, expecting to find it empty. Instead, Mike was waiting beside a motorcycle covered with a tarp. You came, Mike said. You asked. I did, because I wanted to give you something. Mike pulled off the tarp, revealing Jackson's bike, restored gleaming perfect. This is yours now. What? No, that belongs to the club. The club voted, unanimous decision. Jackson would have wanted you to have it. You brought it back to life. You earned it. Ethan stared at the machine he'd spent 9 months rebuilding, the ghost he'd resurrected, the salvation and curse that had nearly destroyed him. I can't accept this. You can and you will. It's a gift. No strings. Mike handed him the keys. But there's something else. We found him. Found who? The man on the phone, the one who's been pulling strings. Took us 18 hours, but we tracked the call to a burner phone purchased by someone in our Vegas chapter. Someone who had access to Jackson's roots, who knew the crash site, who could have staged everything. Mike's expression was grim. It was someone we trusted. Someone who sat at Jackson's funeral and pretended to mourn. Who? Doesn't matter now. He's gone. Ran when he figured out we were coming. But Marcus put the word out. Every chapter, every contact, every friend we have is looking. He can't hide forever. What happens when you find him? Mike's smile was cold. Club justice, the kind that doesn't involve police or courts or mercy. Ethan should have been horrified, should have argued for the law, for proper justice, for doing things the right way. But he'd watched his mother dying for months. He'd been used and manipulated and threatened. He'd seen what corruption and greed could do. So instead, he said, "Make it count." Mike nodded. "We will, but that's our burden, not yours. You did your part. Now you get to walk away with a $50,000 motorcycle, with the knowledge that you're braver than most men twice your age and smarter than you had any right to be." Mike extended his hand. "It's been an honor, kid." Ethan shook it. "What happens now? Now you take care of your mom, finish school, live your life, and maybe someday when you're old enough, and if you still want it, you come find us. The club could use someone with your skills and your heart." "I'm 15. I said someday, not today." Mike climbed on his own bike. The money in the envelope, that's clean. Jackson's life insurance, exactly like Marcus said. You don't have to worry about anyone taking it back. And the bike, titled in your name as of this morning, legal and clear. Mike started his engine. "One more thing. Jim Walker, the real Jim Walker, he left a letter for his family before he died. One of his wishes was that his nephew's bike go to someone who'd appreciate it, someone who'd ride it with honor." Mike met Ethan's eyes. "I think you qualify." He rode away, leaving Ethan alone with the motorcycle and the ghost of a man he'd never met but somehow knew better than most people he'd encountered in his entire life. Ethan climbed on the bike. His hands fit the grips like they'd been made for him. The engine started with a rumble that felt like coming home. He rode slowly out of the junkyard, past the scrap metal and broken dreams, past the trailer where his mother had raised him alone, past the workshop where he'd spent 9 months bleeding and building and hoping. At the highway, he could go right toward the hospital and his mother, or left toward anywhere else in the world. He went right, because some promises were worth keeping, and some fights were worth finishing, and some love was worth whatever price you had to pay. 3 weeks later, his mother was released from the hospital. The treatment was working. The cancer was retreating. The doctor used the word remission carefully, but with hope. Ethan brought her home to a trailer that felt different now, not like a prison, but like a sanctuary. He'd used some of the leftover money to fix the roof repair, the windows, stocked the fridge with actual food. "This is too much," his mother said, looking at the repairs. "This is exactly right." She sat down at their small kitchen table, and Ethan made her tea the way she'd taught him years ago. They sat together in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after surviving something terrible together. "What are you going to do with the bike?" she finally asked. "Keep it, ride it, honor it. And school?" "I'll go back. I've got some catching up to do." "And the club," Ethan met her eyes. "That's over. I did what I needed to do. They did what they needed to do. We're even." His mother reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm proud of you. For all of it. Even the parts that scare me. I'm proud of you too, for not giving up. We make a good team." "Yeah, we do." 2 months after that, Ethan got a call from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Ethan Cole." A voice he didn't recognize. "Yeah, this is Agent Williams, FBI. We've been investigating corruption and organized crime groups, and your name came up in connection with evidence that led to several arrests. I'd like to ask you some questions." Ethan's first instinct was to panic. His second was to laugh, because of course it wasn't over. It would never really be over. I'll talk to you, he said, but I want immunity for anything I say, and protection from my mother. I think we can arrange that. Ethan told the FBI everything about the bike, the SD card, the fake Jim Walker, the conspiracy. He left out only the names of the bikers who'd helped him, the club's internal justice, and the locations where he knew certain bodies were buried. Some secrets he'd decided were worth keeping. The investigation took 6 months and resulted in 14 arrests across 3 states. The corruption went deeper than anyone suspected, involving not just the club, but politicians, police officers, and business owners. Marcus called Ethan when it was over. "You did good work," he said simply. "Jackson would be proud. I just told the truth. That's harder than most people think, and rarer." Marcus paused. "The offer still stands, kid. When you're old enough, when you're ready, you've got a place with us." "I appreciate that, but I think I'm going to take a different path." "Yeah, what path is that?" "College, maybe. Engineering. I'm good with my hands and I like fixing broken things." Marcus laughed. "You've been fixing broken things your whole life. Might as well get paid for it." His voice softened. "How's your mom?" "In remission. Strong. Alive." "That's good. That's really good." Marcus paused. "You ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. Day or night, you're family now." "Thank you." "No, kid. Thank you." The call ended and Ethan looked at the motorcycle parked in what used to be his workshop. He'd ride it sometimes, feeling the wind and the power and the weight of everything it represented. But mostly he looked at his mother, healthy and laughing again, and knew that every choice he'd made, every lie, every risk, every desperate gamble had been worth it. Because at 15 years old, Ethan Cole had learned something. Most people never learn that love is worth fighting for, that honor isn't about being perfect, that sometimes the right choice is the hardest one, and that broken things, machines, people, families can be rebuilt if you're willing to bleed for them. He'd found a destroyed motorcycle in a junkyard and brought it back to life. But in the process, he'd saved something far more valuable. He'd saved himself and the woman who'd given him everything and the future they'd almost lost. And that was worth more than any motorcycle, any amount of money, or any Brotherhood's respect. That was worth everything.